No Way Out from 1950 was a tense medical drama addressing themes of racism, inner city violence, and the strength and commitment of family. It's also the first film of legendary actor Sidney Poitier. Thanks to my friend Florida Greg for recommending this one. I really enjoyed this. So on to the review. So the film opens up, and we have Sidney Poitier's character is Dr. Luther Brooks, who is an intern, and he's just passed the state board examination for his license to practice. And he requests to work as a junior resident at the city hospital for another year. Now he reports to Dr. Wharton, who's played by actor Stephen McNally, who seems like a genuinely encouraging and helpful doctor just working with him. He really wants to see Dr. Brooks be a success. Well, then we get to trouble. Johnny and Ray Biddle show up, and they're basically just two creepy bad guys. They were both shot in the leg by a policeman during an attempted robbery, and they're brought into the hospital's prison ward, where Dr. Brooks treats them. And Ray Biddle is played here excellently by actor Richard Widmark, who, right off the bat, we can see is a very nasty, very racist character, saying all sorts of terrible things to Dr. Brooks, who, to his credit, keeps his cool and does his work treating them. And while working on Johnny, his brother, who is just kind of mostly delirious and out of it the whole time, he performs an emergency spinal tap, but in the process, Johnny dies. And this makes his brother Ray completely flip out and really hate Dr. Brooks even more. So now Dr. Brooks wants to validate his decision. He wants an autopsy performed on Johnny. But since Ray is the only family, he refuses it. Then we see the head of the hospital. It's Dr. Moreland, who's briefly played here by Stanley Ridges. Great actor I've seen in a whole bunch of films I've reviewed, including Sergeant York. Well, he denies the autopsy request because he fears there could be an issue since this involves their only black doctor, and it could impact their funding. So Dr. Brooks and Dr. Wharton, they go to meet with Edie Johnson, who's played by lovely actress Linda Darnell, to see if she can maybe speak to Ray for them. Now, she was Johnny's ex-wife, we discover, so she's sort of family. And at this point, she's very cold and adamant against the autopsy idea. So far, things aren't looking very promising for Dr. Brooks. But although she doesn't say it at the time, she does eventually go to the hospital to visit with Ray. Now, Ray, however, he is just a snake, and he twists things around to make it seem like, the doctors are all in the wrong, there's a conspiracy, and that they just want to do the autopsy and cover their, tracks and everything. And she believes it. Now, Ray convinces her to go and tell all of this to the club owner, Rocky Miller, who's played by actor Bert Freed, telling him all about, Johnny's death and what happened. So she goes along with it, and she goes with Ray's other brother, George, actor Harry Belliver, who is this deaf mute. So Rocky, we see, this club owner, is the ideal tough guy. He and a bunch of his thugs, they find out about this, they're all racist, and they plan for this big attack on the black part of town. Now, Dr. Brooks is at the hospital, and he hears about this big attack that's going to be coming from character Lefty Jones. So he's this actor Dots Johnson, and he's a black elevator operator. And he finds out about this big fight, and, of course, Dr. Brooks urges him, not to be a part of the fight or anything, but it all goes down anyhow. In fact, this big group of these black characters, they preemptively attack. They signal the strike to begin from 4 different directions, with the signal being a flare gun up in the sky. It's actually a very tense scene of uncertainty as this light goes up above everybody. Everyone's kind of looking up. There's this eerie silence, and then calm before the storm, this huge riot breaks out. Doesn't last very long in the film, and soon all of these injured people are being brought to the hospital, black and white. Dr. Wharton is called in, but before he leaves, Edie shows up at his house, just weak and a little delirious. She really wanted nothing to do with these riots, but she really wasn't able to escape from all of the madness. So Dr. Wharton has his housekeeper help take care of Edie while he's gone. Now, back at the hospital, Dr. Brooks tries to help one of these injured white guys, but he's just met with more racism. This from one of the relatives who just spits in his face. I'll be honest, this film could be a little rough to watch. Scenes like this and a lot of the really nasty language against him. But the film is all so well made. And it's at this point that Dr. Brooks just leaves in a moment of shock and just sort of walks away from the hospital. Well, the next day, Dr. Wharton's housekeeper, Gladys, played by Amanda Randolph, has coffee with Edie. And she seems genuinely compassionate and real. And this is right as Dr. Wharton comes home, exhausted from his night helping people. But he soon finds out from Dr. Brooks' wife that he's turned himself in, knowing that there would be a mandatory autopsy performed if he did this. So Dr. Brooks just wants the truth to be told at any cost. And sure enough, the autopsy is finally performed on Johnny, and they determine that yes, he did die from a brain tumor, and that Dr. Brooks was justified in doing the spinal tap. So Ray is there with his brother at the time, and hearing this news, flips out. He says, there's a conspiracy, and his rage just grows, and a little bit later, Ray is able to escape from the cop with his brother. And they head back to Edie's place, and they grab her. Now, he's in bad shape, his leg is getting worse, but that doesn't stop him from this final scheme of his, of forcing Edie to call Dr. Brooks and have him meet at Dr. Wharton's house, where there's going to be a setup. He's going to be waiting there with a gun. Well, how will the film end? What will happen? Well, you're going to have to go watch this one for yourself, but it was an excellent conclusion to this film. So some closing thoughts. I really enjoyed this one. And I read that this was the feature film debut of Sidney Poitier, who was only 22 years old here. I mean, wow, what an amazing actor with just such a tremendous screen presence. And he was just a kid. I love seeing his character as the doctor, who, as I mentioned, manages to keep his cool through the film and do his job, even though he receives so much hatred and vitriol from these characters that he's treating. I've seen several of his films before, but this is the first I've actually reviewed on my channel, and I hope to do more in the future. Sidney Poitier passed away recently at the age of 94 from heart failure. He was a tremendous actor with 76 years of experience in cinema. Mildred Joanne Smith also had an excellent performance as Cora Brooks, his supportive wife in the film. And although not a huge role in the film, I just love seeing her care and support of her physically and emotionally exhausted husband. It's very touching scenes in the film. In fact, all of the scenes of his home life, Dr. Brooks, when he would go home and visit with his family, his fondness for apple cake, and his time spent with his loving family, they're all very touching, and they felt very genuine. And I also thought it was noteworthy the actor Stephen McNally, who played Dr. Wharton. He's this very cool, composed doctor who all through the film shows nothing but unwavering support for Dr. Brooks' character. Really a great actor. And also actress Linda Darnell was excellent as Edie Johnson. From the very beginning, when you first see her and this distrustful air to her character, she's this cynical, chain-smoking character. It's almost like one straight out of a crime noir film. And, from the beginning, she's mixed up with the wrong guy, like they always are. And at the end of the film, she wants to make things right. But she was really amazing throughout this film. And then finally, Richard Widmark just nailed this role as this extremely nasty and cunning character, Ray Biddle. He is just a creep from start to finish in both his nasty language and his schemes to get Dr. Brooks in trouble. Interesting trivia is that Richard Widmark was apparently a very good friend with Sidney Poitier, and apparently very uncomfortable with some of the racist comments his character makes through the film. And yeah, understandably, it's pretty rocky. But in light of their friendship, after some of the takes involving some of the nasty things his character would say, Widmark actually apologized to his friend for the lines that his character had said. Poitier said of him that he was, quote, the most pleasant and refreshing surprise in my initial exposure to the Hollywood scene. The reality of Widmark was 1,000 miles from the characters he played. Joseph Mankiewicz was the writer-director who would also go on to write and direct films like Cleopatra with Liz Taylor. The film was produced by 20th Century Fox, and by the way, thanks to my subscriber Pinto Beans for suggesting that I make note of the studio to produce the films in my reviews. I think that's actually a good call. I think I have done it a couple times in the past, but it's a good practice, I think, to start including that. So thank you for that idea. And also, I'm going to start leaving out background music, which I think had some criticisms in some of my other reviews. So I'll leave it out. And to be honest, I could never really pair the films that I review with, decent, copyright-free music that seem to fit. So I'll just keep it to my voice. If you don't mind my Kermit the Frog sounding voice for these reviews, hey, just keep on watching. And a final note, of course, the film has no relation at all to 1987's film No Way Out with Kevin Costner or the epic 1984 Jefferson Starship song. No way out, she doesn't buy my story. Yeah, sorry. Anyhow, that's No Way Out from 1960. An extraordinary film, very well acted, great story, and it's worth checking out.